Hello, and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the upcoming edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined today by Thad Greenson, news editor at North Coast Journal. Hey, Thad.
Hi, Dave. How are you doing?
Pretty good. It's been a little hectic here, but other than that, I'm looking forward to hearing what you got going on this week. Let's just dive right on in, and you got this fascinating story on the cover. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, frame the story and tell us a little bit about how it came to be.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have this story on the cover for so many reasons. One of them is just that it is a piece of really, really good news, and really encouraging, inspiring story at a time when I think we all need it. But the story is by our digital editor, Kim Weir, who wrote about Project Rebound, which is a new program that started last fall at Humboldt State University. And it basically provides a prison to school pipeline. So it takes folks who are being paroled out of state prison and brings them to HSU and provides them a whole host of support services to kind of guide them through their education. And it's before I get too far down that road, it's a phenomenal program that's making like really real reverberating impacts in lots of lives. But one of the things that I love so much about the story is just kind of a personal connection to it. This program, Project Rebound, was founded and really pushed forward by this guy named Tony Wallen, who is a recent HSU graduate and was a journalism major, and really devout journal readers might recognize his name from he's had some bylines in the journal. And I first met Tony, I think, shortly after he transferred to HSU in 2018, and really didn't know anything about his background, just knew that he was like one of these really thirsty journalism students who just loved journalism and had like a real passion for telling people stories and seemed to kind of care about journalism for all the right reasons, really wanting to kind of give people the information needed to make change in their communities. And the stories he was working on were never about him. They were just always about the people that he was covering and the impact that they could have and stuff. So I was just kind of instantly drawn to him. And then I started to learn more about him, and I learned, that he had been formerly incarcerated and had, a really untraditional road to getting to HSU. He'd struggled with some addiction issues and had been, I think, kind of in and out of jail for buying and selling drugs, or possessing and selling drugs, and really had, made this drastic change in his life, and first getting an AA degree down in Sacramento and then transferring to HSU, and all the time kind of with this outlook that he wanted to make things better for other people. And so Kim's story really this week starts off with Tony's experience of kind of showing up at HSU, and he'd already, like I said, earned an AA degree and knew that he could kind of do the school thing, but was away from home in a new community. And he just kind of said that he had this fog hanging over him, that this question of whether he belonged. And he'd look around kind of the halls of campus, and, he has a couple face tattoos and maybe doesn't look like the traditional HSU student. And just had this like lingering question of whether he belonged, and then started reaching out to some campus support folks at HSU, kind of the dean of students and people who are tasked with guiding and supporting the student experience. And kind of found out that there was nothing for him, that there was no campus club or program like dedicated to supporting students coming from his experience. And he kind of recites this conversation he had with an administrator where they're like, well, start one. If you don't see this club that you need, start it. And he's like, that's like way more than I'd, planned to take on. So being a journalist, he wrote about his experience for the Lumberjack. And then in the course of kind of writing that column or that story, thought like, maybe this is something I can do. And really took it on. He partnered with another student, but I think this was really Tony's passion project, and just kind of dove in. And then, so over the course of, maybe a year and a half, started this program. And so Project Rebound, for folks who don't know, it's not new. It's not unique to HSU. It was started back in, I think, 1967 by a San Francisco State professor who had also been formerly incarcerated and felt like there was nothing like this, and that it could just be so impactful. So we started there, and it's since, I think, expanded to 13 campuses, HSU being the most recent. And kind of, as I said at the outset, the whole idea is just to really, provide a pathway for these students to feel like they belong in an educational institution and then support them through their experience. And so anyway, fast forward a little bit. I knew that I'd talked to Tony kind of as he was going through this process of trying to start the club, and I'd run into him places around town, or he'd be pitching me a freelance story, and I'd just be like, so what's up with Project Rebound? And he'd give me updates. And then I didn't, the pandemic hit, and I hadn't seen him for a while. And then at some point during last school year, I ran into him on the Arcata Plaza at an event. I think it was one of the anniversaries for David Josiah Lawson's death, and Charmaine Lawson, his mom, was in town, and so I ran into Tony there and just kind of asked him how things were going, and he was like, "Man, it is awesome. The program is like up and running," and he's like, "I've got these students that are just incredible, and they're changing their lives." And he mentioned at that point that he had two students who were now at HSU and had formerly been serving life sentences. And he just spoke with kind of this amazing amount of pride about how, he was both able to help them make a transition that he'd made, but then he was also able to provide them supports that they'd never had. And so it was at that point that I was like, well, this is a fantastic story, and we need to write about it. And so I asked Kim if she was interested, and she dove in. And then, as a part of that, she, as part of reporting the story, she got to talk to two of Tony's 13 students. So she spoke to Mark Taylor and Eric Clark, both of them whom are on track to graduate. I think Mark is spring of 22, and then I think Eric sooner than that. But they both had these just both incredible stories, and then just really incredible outlooks. That is just, like I said, just really inspiring to me.
Fantastic. So I realize this is Kim's article, but you're chatting it up with us here today about it. Just for folks who don't really know, like you mentioned, it's the prison to school process as opposed to the other way around. So just to spell it out, how do these folks get into this, and how does it support this transition for them? What were some of the the specific elements of the program itself, and then we could get into some of the more personal experiences that they had.
Yeah, so it starts with ideally, I mean, the pandemic changed things a little bit, but I as far as what was possible is in terms of in-person meetings and stuff like that. But moving forward, it starts really with Tony doing kind of recruiting visits to prisons and other people in Tony's position at other campuses, but going in and talking to folks who are enrolled in educational programs in prison, and saying, that this is a pathway that exists for them, and if it's something that they want to do, Project Rebound will then help them kind of get their admissions criteria in line so that they can be admitted to a California State University. And Tony has a line, that in Project Rebound, they don't say no, they say not yet. And so if student doesn't meet the eligibility requirements, they counsel them on how to do it, what classes they need to take in prison, what remedial skills they need to work on to get to the point where they can be admitted to this program. And then goes all the way through, I think in some cases, writing letters to parole boards kind of on a student's behalf, saying that they've been working with them and they are in line to be admitted. They kind of have a landing spot once they're released from prison. And then once they get on campus, it's like a full spectrum of services. And Kim, for the story, talked to Sean Brenneman, who is the Humboldt County Chief Probation Officer, just about how disrupting incarceration can be in somebody's life, and especially long-term incarceration. So, I mean, both Mark and Eric spent more than 20 years in prison. And so, and how hard it is to kind of pick up the pieces and find housing and find employment and these things, and having an advocate on your behalf and somebody to help guide you through those processes and guide you to the support services that are available in the broader community too, is just really integral. And then there is just kind of the psychosocial stuff of having people with a shared experience, kind of a club to process things with and go through things with. And I'm blanking at the moment. I can't remember if it was Eric or Mark, but one of them has this great story about their first big assignment for class that was due, and they had to send it an email attachment to their professor, and this is distance learning in the time of COVID and stuff, and they were just like, I don't know how to attach a document to an email. And, you have to keep in mind that when he went to prison,
Right.
the internet was in its infancy. Google hadn't even been founded yet. And so, like, expecting him to know how to attach a document and submit it is a big ask. And you can also see, for somebody who's now, a 45 or 50-year-old man, how embarrassing that could be in a certain setting, of having to ask that question of a peer who's maybe a lot younger than you, or even a professor. And it just kind of, brings up all these feelings. But they didn't have to, because they just called Tony, or they called another, member of Project Rebound, and they're like, oh, this is how you do it, and walk them through it. So it's really just kind of that, providing them with that community within a community that has that shared experience and can really support them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So it sounds like, in addition to getting your foot in the door at the level of where folks are beginning to get education, skills, and access while they're still in prison, he's able to transition them into university setting, give a relatively safe space. And I guess it's a continuum of support, because you don't really know what you need until you're there, and to have peers with a shared set of experiences. Were there any other examples of how specific services or specific supports were really appreciated by these folks who are in there in this program already?
Yeah, one of the things that Tony started at HSU, and I don't know if this is unique to HSU or if other Project Rebound programs have kind of similar components, but he said he's really big on trying to go through a Humboldtification process with folks, because most of them are from the outside area and are new to the community, and so they go on backpacking trips and hikes in the redwoods and have barbecues and go to the river and do all of this kind of outdoor stuff that is really why a lot of us are drawn to Humboldt County, or a lot of us stay in Humboldt County, and kind of celebrating that community and as kind of a bonding experience for this specific group, and he said that that's just kind of that peer-to-peer support, and those relationships really have a staying power, and that really help people, during those hard times in school, or those hard times making the transition from kind of the regimented confines of an incarcerated life to having more freedoms and more responsibilities and having to navigate more things on your own. That these peer relationships are really just kind of the foundational block that everything else is built upon. And then Tony has also put a big, again, I don't know if this is how unique this is to the Humboldt chapter, but he really wanted this group to be service oriented. And so he has formed a partnership with Humboldt County Probation, where they are going to be teaching 10-week courses this coming up in this fall to kids in juvenile hall. And going in and kind of talking to them about their experiences, acting in mentor roles, and then really, showing people, these kids, that another pathway is possible, and Sean Brenneman from Probation, spoke to how impactful that can be for kids who, maybe don't have a family member that's been to college, have maybe suffered similar traumas to these men in their childhoods. And having somebody with those shared experiences come in and say, look, I went through all this, and I kind of I stood in your shoes, and I've chosen to make this change in my life. And Sean was just saying how impactful that can be, and how life affirming and life changing for these kids. And so, for Tony, that's a big component also. He's also worked with the Boys to Men group that started in McKinleyville and is now spread to other local middle school campuses that I think Iridian Caceres talked to you about for the ACEs project, the childhood trauma, and how to kind of break that cycle. And so, it's really cool to me in the story is that, each one of these success stories of a person who goes from, a point of incarceration or punishment to having made some amends, having served their time, to dedicating themselves to this program, just the reverberating impacts and how many lives that can touch. And it's just really inspiring to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's so you had anticipated what I was thinking, the success story element of it. So in addition to the personal lives of the people who Kim spoke with and other participants in Project Rebound, and the folks that they've talked to in this preventative measure by going out into the community, and so there's mentorships, there's intervention aspect of this. I recall that there's some, recidivism impact. Is there any kind of like way we can quantify or wrap our heads around that sort of success?
Yeah, absolutely. The statistics in support of this program are kind of nuts, and so I'm glad you brought them up because I think it's really important for folks to know. So first of all, there's about 450 students in Project Rebound. I think I said it has an annual budget of I think it's just about $4 million statewide. So it works out to $9,000 per student per year. It costs $100,000 a year to incarcerate someone in California. So right there, that is even ignoring like all the other community impacts and stuff, or personal impacts of the program. It's a huge savings over incarceration. If somebody's being paroled out of prison into this program, that's a win for taxpayers. But it goes so much farther than that. The statewide, the recidivism rate, so folks who are being released from prison, like the rate at which they reoffend and end up back in jail or back in prison for a new offense, is about 50%. So like half of people coming out of prison go back, which is just kind of an appalling rate. And it really speaks to kind of the cycle of incarceration and how hard, what Sean Brenneman was saying, how hard it is for somebody to get back on the right track and get their feet back underneath them. In Project Rebound, since 2016, so in the last 5 years, 0 students have reoffended.
Whoa.
So yeah, I mean, that's just huge. And then beyond that, 87% of students over that time frame, so in the last 5 years, who have graduated have walked directly into a job or a graduate program. So not only is this program, helping keep these students out of prison and from going back to jail, but it's actually really funneling them into positions where they can make really large impacts, not just on their families and their own lives, but for communities.
I truly got goosebumps. I mean, it's weird that, I consider myself somewhat jaded in this universe, but this is hope and optimism, like the direct. When you hear that, like this is the kind of program that you hoped or wished existed, but maybe never heard about. And to find out that it just is in our community, it's just a year or so old, and it was founded by somebody who just said, "Hey, are there any supports for me here at HSU?" And the advice was, "No, go start a club. You make it happen."
Yeah.
So this is such an amazing story. Thank you for sharing it with us here today.
Absolutely, and I can't say enough that Kim did just a wonderful job in telling the story, and each of these folks. I mean, we've touched on them a little bit, but Mark, Eric, and Tony have these stories of just personal challenges and personal toils and triumphs at the end that are just really inspiring to read. And all three of them are so devoted to taking those negatives in their lives and those experiences and really making good out of them and improving the community around them. And it's those goosebumps will continue. I urge everybody to really dig into the story and read it.
Yeah, this is fantastic, and I'm sure that you mentioned our chief probation officer, Brenneman. I'm sure that he and his colleagues also appreciate that this sort of policy entrepreneurship that Tony provided to our community. It's like, green starts or something, whatever the metaphor is.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Fantastic. So for today, for this week, it's just me and you. We don't have Jennifer again. So you're going to also fill us in on what's going on the arts and features beat. What are you guys covering this week there?
Yeah, so it's kind of serendipitous. It's another story that I did not write or have any real role in bringing to fruition, but I have like a personal connection with. So it's about the Jefferson Community Center in Eureka, which is has long been it's something that I've reported on for a long time. So way back in 2012, I was a young brown-haired reporter at the Times-Standard and was covering the city of Eureka. And the school of Jefferson Elementary School on Eureka's west side had been closed for some time. And it was a time when this group of neighbors in that community felt like they were really kind of getting short shrift from the city. That Eureka City Schools had closed this school, which was really kind of as schools do, was serving as a community hub and a community meeting place and stuff, and left it as kind of this blighted property that was boarded up. And there was just kind of all kinds of crime issues in the town and in that part of town and stuff. And so they formed this group called the West Side Community Improvement Association and started showing up religiously at every city council meeting and making a fuss and doing all the things that community improvement groups are supposed to do. And they really kind of zeroed in on this school campus. And there came a point where Eureka City Schools decided that it was going to sell the campus as surplus property, figuring that enrollment was never going to kind of come back to the level in which it could open it again as a school. And this, group of neighbors just kind of got this seemingly crazy idea of, we're going to buy it. We're going to buy it and we're going to turn it into a community center. And again, they kind of went through all the channels of showing up at school board meetings and city council meetings and raised enough of a fuss that they were able to leverage funds and get a discount price and buy this property. And there was kind of some political, there's some political wind changes. At one point, the Eureka City Council had a big changeover in its kind of political makeup, and the council then tried to walk away from this project, and they had to kind of raise hell again and continue on with the pressure until it finally made it through. But so now, this community center has been open for, I think, about 4 or 5 years, and it's just kind of flourished. It's there's a community playground, there's community gardens there. And there's a family resource center. There is a commercial kitchen that both allows folks to come in and teach classes and do fundraisers and those kinds of things, but also has this massive youth lunch program that feeds anybody under 18 at least lunch every day, and oftentimes dinner too, it sounds like. And then does kind of all the other quirky things that a community center does, which is rent out spaces for yoga classes and those kinds of things. But it has gone from I shouldn't say it in a passive voice. It hasn't gone from this group of neighbors took this blighted property that was really the focal point of a lot of issues in their neighborhood and made it into this vibrant center of the community. And it's a wonderful story.
So shout out to Westside for making it happen, the Community Improvement Association. You described a little bit about what they were able to do. They were able to secure or obtain the property, I guess, purchase it at a relatively affordable price, start implementing some programs. You said they have a commercial kitchen, and also that they feed anyone under 18 meals, but apparently they do a bunch of other culinary services and have some aspirations about how to do more in the future. What can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as I said, they're doing both. They have like cooking classes for fundraisers and stuff. So Wendy Chen, who is a longtime journal contributor who writes food columns for us, will do kind of one-off classes that then serve as a fundraiser for a certain program or something like that. But then they also do kind of farm-to-table nutritional courses and teaching families about kind of how to source your food to make sure that it's healthy, and then how to really eat well, and both eat well from a healthy and nutrition standpoint, but then also eat well from an uplifting of the community standpoint of buying local as much as possible and those kinds of things. And then they have the goal of starting the I think it's called the J Cafe is what they're going to name it, but having a kind of a sit-down dining experience there at a cafe that is run by kind of a hybrid of employees and volunteers in a mentorship and training program. And so the idea would be that it's really helping folks develop employment skills by teaching them the culinary arts, teaching them hospitality skills, and then while serving the community and while showcasing kind of what a locavore restaurant can be in growing its own food in the community garden there and serving it and kind of showing folks that farm to table connection.
That is fantastic and inspirational also. I love it that we have two inspirational stories. So they are, I mean, I guess I'm asking, how are they funded and sort of how do people contribute or what other organizations are helping to keep this going, this momentum going for this apparent success?
Yeah, they partner with a bunch of other local nonprofits, and so it's kind of it's a very symbiotic thing. There's a lot of groups supporting each other and kind of lifting each other up. It's excellent.
Dad, this was great talking with you today. There's just so much that we covered on these two encouraging and positive stories in our community. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure, David. Thanks.
That's about going to do it for us this week. North Coast Journal is on newsstands now. Pick one up. Also, they're available online. Stay informed, stay educated and entertained, and stay safe. Till next time, take care.